Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dave Zellers, Director of Commerce for Montgomery County, and I want to thank you for registering and joining this webinar this afternoon to learn from our colleagues at the U.S. Small Business Administration about the resources that are available to help individuals impacted by Hurricane Ida here in Montgomery County, specifically our business community. But one of the most important things to take away from today is that the SBA is here to help individuals and households and businesses impacted by Ida, and I know they'll share a little bit more with you. We are streaming this live on Facebook as well today, and the video will be posted afterwards for folks to go back and look at. You'll also see some documents in the chat, and we'll be sending out some follow-ups as well. Again, we know this has been a very difficult time for so many of our neighbors and friends here in Montgomery County. We hope you're all safe and well. And we are here to work with our friends at the SBA and FEMA and other support organizations to aid in the recovery effort. With that, I'm going to turn things over to Kathy Cook from the SBA to get started. Thank you again, everybody.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Kelly. It's a pleasure to be here and discuss the SBA's disaster loan program. As you would suspect, SBA helps businesses, but what you probably don't know, and Dave alluded to, is that in times of disaster, SBA also helps homeowners, renters, and nonprofits. Next slide, please. What our mission is to provide low interest loans to businesses of all sizes, not just small businesses, and private nonprofits, homeowners and renters. And the funds are to repair and replace what damage was sustained because of the remnants of Hurricane Ida. And we also have a part of the program that will help small businesses and most private nonprofits with their economic injury. And we'll talk more about these in the coming slides. Next slide, please. The first condition to apply for a loan is you have to be in a declared county. And as you can see, the primary county list does include Montgomery, but also Bucks, Chester, Delaware, Philadelphia, and New York. So if you're in any one of those counties, then you can apply for two types of loans if you're a business. You can apply for money for repair and replacement, and you can apply for an economic injury disaster loan. In a presidentially declared disaster, FEMA is the host agency. They bring other programs together with themselves to help maximize the assistance provided to homeowners, renters, businesses, and the whole community. So it's important to know that for this particular declaration, FEMA grants are available to homeowners and renters if you're located in one of those primary counties. If you're in an adjacent county, that means a county that's neighboring or connecting to, then if you're a small business or a private nonprofit, you are eligible for an economic injury disaster loan as well, because our agency realizes that business does not stop at the county border. Next slide, please. So basically, the two types of loans are one we call physical loans. Those are for businesses and homeowners and renters for their physical disaster damages. So if you had damage to the actual structure, to landscaping, you need funds for debris removal, or for the contents, then these loans are for you. Businesses of any size can apply, as well as most private nonprofit organizations. Economic injury disaster loans are what I call keep the business in business loan. They're the loans that help keep the business in operation until things normalize. And the business doesn't have to have suffered physical damage if they apply. Let me explain further. Let's suppose that you're a restaurant and the storm created havoc in your restaurant. It blew out windows, the tables and chairs, the electricity was turned off, you lost your food. you have a lot of physical damage, then you can apply for that. But while you're repairing and replacing those items, you're not doing your normal business operations. So an economic injury disaster loan provides working capital to keep the business in business in a manner it could have as if the disaster not occurred. So if you had physical damage, you can apply for both physical disaster damages and economic injury disaster loans. However, if you are in those neighboring counties, you're only eligible for the working capital loans. Next slide, please. How much can you borrow, you're wondering? Well, if you're a business and you had those physical damages, the need to repair and replace, you can borrow up to $2 million. If you're a small business or a nonprofit organization and you need working capital loans, you can borrow up to $2 million for your economic injury. The loan cannot exceed $2 million between the two types. If you are a homeowner, you can borrow up to $200,000 to repair and replace your real estate. That would be home, fencing, a garage if it's separate, or a shed if it's separate. And if you're a homeowner or renter, you can borrow as much up to $40,000 for your content loss. That would be your clothes, furniture, lawnmower, and even your automobile. Today's world, we are concerned with helping prevent damage from occurring. So SBA has a program called Mitigation. This allows anyone with physical damage to apply for an additional 20% above the loan amount as verified by SBA's damages for mitigation. Those are protective improvements. So it's 20% above your loan amount, but it's calculated on the base of what your physical damages were. And we encourage everyone with physical damage to consider that. That's to help prevent future damage from occurring. And we'll talk a little more about that too. Next slide, please. Currently, the interest rate is as low as 1.565 for homeowners and renters, 2.855 for businesses of all sizes, and 2% for nonprofits. If you apply for economic injury loans, then the rate is set at 2.855 for businesses and agricultural cooperatives and 2% for nonprofits. The deadline to apply for physical disaster damages is November 9th. But the sooner you apply, the sooner you can get money and funds for repair and replacement and for your working capital loss, the sooner you can recover. Next slide, please. So what does it take to get a loan approval? You know how much you can borrow, but how do you know if you can get approved? Well, the first thing is you have to be in a declared county. And it has to be your house or your business or your property that was damaged. So once you meet that eligibility criteria, the next thing is to have credit satisfactory to SBA. It doesn't mean perfect, that means credit acceptable to SBA. And the third component is you must have repayment ability. Repayment ability means that you have the ability to pay your existing debts and obligations and have some funds left over for an SBA loan payment. If you have those three things, then it's likely that we'll be able to approve you for a loan. However, if we are for some reason unable to approve you for a loan, then SBA will notify you in writing. We will decline your loan application and tell you the reasons why and give you up to 6 months to ask for reconsideration. The reconsideration request must be in writing and accompanied by information to help overcome the reason for decline. For example, let's say I'm a homeowner or a business and I was declined for lack of repayment ability. That means that financially, SBA cannot conclude that I can repay the loan and my existing debts and obligations. But perhaps I didn't include all my income. Perhaps I have a part-time job and I didn't include the income from that. Then you can ask for reconsideration, provide support for that additional income, and another loan officer will take a look at it and perhaps will reach a new conclusion. So we give you opportunities to ask for reconsideration that may not be available if you borrowed elsewhere. Please don't count yourself out. Don't determine that you don't have satisfactory credit and don't apply, or you don't have repayment ability and don't apply. Let us make the decision for you. And then once we've made the decision, you can look at the options you have for appealing it. Next slide, please. Once you borrow a loan, if it's over $25,000, then it requires collateral. What that means is we're going to place a lien on your real estate, or if you don't have any real estate, on machinery and equipment or other assets. If you are a business and applying for physical disaster losses and economic injury working capital, you can borrow up to $25,000 for each of those components for a total of $50,000 without having pledged collateral. The amount for each category for physical losses and economic injury cannot exceed the $25,000 each. But a $50,000 unsecured business loan is a great tool to help you overcome the losses you experienced in this disaster. We don't require you to have real estate as collateral. We're not going to decline you if you don't have real estate or if you don't have collateral. We will find something to secure the loan. But if we ask for you to place a second lien on your business property and you don't want to do that, then the option is to either select a lower loan amount up to $25,000, or there's no obligation to take the loan. You can simply say you're not interested. If your property is in a special flood hazard area, that means the probability of you flooding is 1% in 100 years. You say, well, gosh, I'm not going to last 100 years. That's not much. But over a 30-year mortgage, that's a 30% chance that you'll be flooded again. To help prevent you from having to borrow again in the future, if you're the 100-year floodplain, we will require you to get flood insurance as a condition of the loan. Next slide, please. What are some of the features for this loan that make it so appealing? Well, we think our low interest rates are helpful. There's no cost to apply. You don't have to pay for a credit bureau report or any processing fees like you would have to from a private lender. You do not have to wait for insurance to be settled. We can make you a loan documents. You'll notice that there's a date on the promissory note. Your first payment will not be until 18 months from the date on that promissory note. That means that you have almost a year and a half before you have to worry about paying these loans. And yes, interest does accrue over that period of time, but it also gives you time to make the repairs and replacements before you have to start worrying about paying this loan. So it gives you time to catch up on your working capital needs, on repairing the property, on getting back into your pre-disaster condition. One more slide, please. Okay, and once again, mitigation. We talked about the loan amounts. You can borrow up to $2 million if you're a business for your physical losses and your economic injury needs. Up to $200,000 for a homeowner for repair and replacement of the real estate, and $40,000 for content damage for homeowners and renters. SBA will allow you to increase the loan amount for your physical damages by 20% for mitigation. Mitigation is protective improvements. It is building back better, stronger, and more resilient. We want to encourage you to take advantage of this part of our loan program. You don't have to provide information or say that you're interested in it right now. Once you're approved for the loan, though, before you start rebuilding, you want to think about possible mitigation measures, such as elevating the structure, elevating utilities, regrading property so the water does not get in the building, installing a sump pump, installing French drains. There's numerous different things that you can do. You can provide SBA with a contractor's estimate and we'll review it and can increase the loan again by up to 20% of the verified loss to your physical damages just for mitigation. So please consider incorporating protective improvements into your rebuilding plan. Next slide, please. Well, technical difficulty. So you want to know how to apply. I've told you how much you can borrow, what the lowest interest rates are. We encourage everybody to first register with FEMA, even if you're a business. As a result of the registration, most homeowners and renters and all businesses are going to be referred to SBA. How do you register with FEMA? You go to www.disasterassistance.gov. Program. And the way you can do that, simply going online at www.disasterloanassistance.sba.gov. We are going to ask you to provide information on an application that's similar to any lender. Your name, address, income information, debts and obligations. And we're going to ask you to fill out a form that will allow us to provide tax transcripts to the loan officer so they can process the loan. But we want to make sure that you are in the system and eligible for loans and grants. So if you're a homeowner and renter, you absolutely should first register with FEMA. Become direct is that you have to have satisfactory credit. If credit is satisfactory, then we're going to pass your file over to a loss verifier. And you for an approval. Your loan documents. Next slide, please. The loan closing documents mainly consist of two primary things. One is the promissory note, which means you promise to pay SBA back, and the other is a loan authorization and agreement, kind of a contract between SBA and you. It tells how you're supposed to spend the money, what the collateral is if the loan is over $25,000 for physical damages, um, any insurance requirements, any stipulations, and we will send those documents to you. It is only once you return the loan closing documents that we can actually disperse. So that disbursement is generally within 5 business days of when we receive the loan closing documents. So when you're thinking, how long does it take to get the money? It's really dependent upon you. The sooner you start the process, the sooner we can process your application. And the sooner we can make the loan closing documents available to you to sign and return. Generally speaking, large loans for reconstruction or rebuilding are dispersed in increments. $25,000 at first, you show receipt where you've spent the funds, and then you get another draw and maybe a final draw. If the loan is only for working capital, then usually we can disperse in one draw, depending upon if we have the collateral documents. You can borrow up to $25,000 unsecured, and it'll be one lump sum for both types of loans, physical or economic. But when it's over that amount, that's when we have to have collateral in place, and we may disperse in installments. Next slide, please. So aside from registering with FEMA, applying with SBA, if you are like me and you want to talk to somebody, you want to reach out and have somebody explain the process face to face and tell you if you're doing right or wrong. We have 3 business recovery centers in Pennsylvania. One is in Chester County, one is in Philadelphia County, and one is in York County. You don't have to visit these centers, but they are an opportunity to meet with an SBA person face to face. You can go to any of the facilities that's closest to you. And if you are applying online and doing it by yourself and you have some questions, you can certainly call us at 800-659-2955, or you can send us an email at disastercustomerservice@sba.gov, and we'll be happy to help you. Next slide, please. We also have partners throughout the state that can help businesses apply. Sometimes business, by the mere fact that they had a disruption from a disaster, may not have their financial records available, and they need help reconstructing them. Our partners at the Small Business Development Centers, the Women's Business Centers, and SCORE, as well as the SBA District Office, can help. They can, for free, help reconstruct financial records. They can also help you actually load up the application to apply and provide further counseling services so that they can help you in the long term. For instance, if you want to expand your business or create another business, they're a resource for you. And again, the services are available to you, especially because you were involved in a disaster. So they can help you with all components. You don't have to get your accountant, or you don't have to hire a CPA. We have resources available to you. Next slide, please. People have asked us, can somebody have more than one disaster loan? Currently, a lot of people have applied for the economic injury disaster loans for COVID-19. And the answer is absolutely yes. You can have more than one disaster loan. You may have been involved in a tornado in the past, and you had a 30-year loan, and you're still paying on it. You may still apply for the Hurricane Ida loan. If you have a COVID loan, you can apply for the Hurricane Ida loan. But the loans cannot be consolidated. You must maintain payments on both loans. How long do you have to apply? Well, if you're just applying for physical disaster damages, you have until November 9th. If you're just applying for economic injury, you have until June 10th. Why is that? Well, if you had physical damage, you know right away that you need help. So we have a shorter window. However, you can be in some of those neighboring counties and do business with the businesses in those primary counties. Let's say that you are a person that provides linens to hotels and to high-end restaurants. And you do this twice a year. You switch out all their linens, all their sheets and tablecloths and napkins, etc. But you didn't realize that your primary customers in Montgomery County had damage. So when you call to reaffirm the order, they don't answer the phone. And when you get in touch with them, you find out that it's probably going to take them 9 months to repair the restaurant, the hotel. So you've lost a main customer. And so you're going down. You sustain no physical damage, but the fact that your customers have cost you, that's a period of time, as much as 9 months from the date of the declaration in which businesses can apply for economic injury until June 10th, 2022. But if you have physical damage, we're going to consider you for physical and economic all at once, because we realize that a business that's physically damaged is probably having some working capital losses. Next slide, please. And the next slide, please.
That's the last slide.
And whatever topics about this presentation you need clarification on. Again, the most important thing to keep in mind is if you're a homeowner and renter, first register with FEMA. And we prefer that businesses do, but you can stop and apply directly with SBA. The next thing is, if you'd like face-to-face assistance, please go to one of the business recovery centers. The next thing to remember is there's no cost to apply. As a matter of fact, even if you're approved for the loan, you do not have to accept it. You can turn it down.
Hi, Kathy. We lost your video, but you're back.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. Do we have any questions?
Thank you so much. We are taking questions two
We
ways.
do have questions, Kathy.
Thank you so much. We are taking questions two ways today. Julie, you can go ahead.
Kelly, are you going to ask the questions? Okay. So Kathy, I'm going to start at the top with the questions. The first question is, what are the payment terms? How many months do we have to repay the loan?
Okay, the payment terms are set on each individual's repayment ability. You may borrow $25,000 and I might borrow $25,000, but because I have van payments and I am buying the business building, I might not be able to have as much cash flow as you do. So the term can stretch as far as 30 years to make it affordable, but the payment is determined on each person's repayment ability analysis. The loan officer will advise you of that. And again, You don't have to start paying until 18 months from the date on the promissory note. Interest will accrue on the amount disbursed, but you don't have to make payments until that time. And if you choose to make payments early, you may. Next question.
Okay, thanks, Kathy. Here's the next question.
Next question.
Yeah. Are there restrictions on how to use the money? And does the SBA need to approve each expenditure for repairs and improvements?
In your loan authorization agreement, the contract between you and SBA, we have a section called use of proceeds. And to a very broad category, we do spell out the uses of the money. However, we'll say something like you are authorized to use approximately $50,000 to repair and replace the real estate located at 123 Main Street. Or we would say approximately $20,000 for working capital, approximately $5,000 for landscaping. So it's in broad categories such as that. Not every little table, chair, book, item do we tell you what to do with. However, we do expect to see receipts where you've spent the money. Generally, receipts over $1,000 are required. And once you the first disbursement and send those receipts, then you're eligible for second disbursement. So SBA does monitor how you use the money, and we do tell you in one sense how we expect you to use it, because that's how we calculated the loan amount. I hope that answers your question. Do we have anyone else?
Kathy, did you talk about if
Do we have anyone else?
Did you talk about, Kathy, if people want to switch categories with the money, that they can talk to their loan officer about that, or if that's an option? I think that is a question.
Any change that you have that you want in the loan authorization agreement, you would need to contact SBA and ask for that modification. Whether it is you want to change the collateral, or you want to have a subordinate so you can get more of a loan through your first lender, or whether you need the funds for different items that were not included. Any change, you can make the request and we will analyze it, and you will either get approval or a denial. And any time that SBA denies you, whether it's the original loan application or a request like this, we will give you up to 6 months to request reconsideration. And sometimes that simply means to provide more of an explanation of what you need, or a contractor's estimate, or something to support your reason for the change. Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Kathy. Somebody has asked if the business interest rate of 2.855%, is that an annual percentage rate?
That is a fixed rate, and it's simple interest. That is a fixed rate, and it's simple interest.
Okay, another question is it best to apply with SBA online?
It is absolutely best to apply online. And the reason for that is because if you're typing the information in, it's probably more likely to be correctly spelled and more accurate. And the fact that your computer will be talking to our computer means the information will flow through to our operation faster than if you mailed the application in. If you mail the application in, then somebody's got to transcribe it, and that takes longer. It can get lost in the mail. Whereas if you apply online, It's a direct path to SBA. Thank you for the question. Do we have anything else?
Okay, another,
we have anything
yes, we have several more questions. Here's one. Is there ever an instance of loan forgiveness with natural disaster loans?
There is not. By law, SBA's disaster loans cannot be forgiven. So it would take literally an act of Congress to allow that to happen. Thank you for the question. Thank you for the question.
Okay, how long does the approval process take?
Generally, the approval process takes 2 to 3 weeks. Not 2 to 3 weeks for the approval, it's 2 to 3 weeks to get a loan decision. Thank you for the question.
What documents are required for the non-collateral loans?
Basically, it's 2 documents. One is the promissory note that says, I, Kathy Cook, promise to repay SBA $10,000 at 2.88% interest with monthly payments of however much it is for 30 years. And then the other document is the loan authorization and agreement. Again, that's the one that will spell out the use of proceeds and any other rules and regulations regarding the loan, such as you can't use lead-based paint because it's against the building codes. If you are in a 100-year floodplain, that means 1% in 100 years that you get flooded, and you should go to your county building authority and they can tell you if you're in a floodplain. Then we would require flood insurance. But otherwise, generally speaking, they're just going to be those 2 documents. Thank you for the question. Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Kathy. So another question, I guess they just want more clarity on how long it can take from the time they apply, get through the process, get it approved, to the actual disbursement of funds.
I cannot give you an exact time from the inception to when you get money. And the reason for that is it depends on you. We're saying that from the time we get the application in till the time a decision is made, it's 2 to 3 weeks. Once we make a loan decision, we prepare the loan closing documents and we'll send them to you. You have up to 60 days to execute the documents. In some cases, you can get an initial disbursement by just filing or returning a signed promissory note and a loan authorization. In other cases, there may be other stipulations that have to be provided with those documents in order to get certain amount of funds. So it really depends on how long it takes you to get the documents back. If we are still in the field, then often we call you to come to our office, our temporary office, Business Recovery Center, and we will close the loan face to face. But in other cases, we may have to just send you the documents and you execute them. Sometimes it might require that you get a building permit because of the local ordinances. So it really depends on how long it takes you to execute the documents. But once you return it, it's about 5 business days for the money, and the money gets direct deposited into the account that you gave us. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Kathy. We have 2 more questions.
I hope that answered your question.
That's great. So Kathy, we have two more questions at this time, just to let you know how many are coming up. The first one is flood insurance required on non-collateral loans.
Flood insurance is required if you are in a 100-year floodplain. If it is not required, then your loan officer will let you know. But generally speaking, federal funds can't go into a property unless it's insured against flood damage if you're in a 100-year floodplain.
Okay, thank you. Here's the second question, Kathy. Are tax returns required for loan applications?
If you are a homeowner or renter or business, we're going to ask you to first execute an IRS Form 4506T or 4506C as in cat. Once you submit that form, then it allows us to get tax transcripts from the IRS. However, it takes a while to get those tax transcripts, and for businesses, not all of the tax entries are on the transcript. So for businesses, we will always ask for 1 year, the most recent year, of the federal tax returns in addition to that form. Thank you for the question.
Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Kathy. That is all the questions that have been input in the Q&A. So I think Kelly was going to let people ask questions now by raising their hand.
Okay, and I do see one question here. The funds are direct deposited to the individual. So one of the loan closing documents you have requires you to provide a voided check. And we only send checks on a very, very rare occasion. So the funds are generally direct deposited into your account, and that protects everyone. There's a lot of people who come around disaster areas and they know that some people have checks coming just like they do when Social Security checks come. So we prefer, and we hope that you prefer, to have your money direct deposited.
Great. Thank you so much, Kathy. That was a question that we got from our Facebook. So we just wanted to paste that in there. And again, if someone would like to verbally ask your question, you can use the raise your hand feature, and that will allow us to know that you'd like to speak. So I'm just going to give it a moment to see if anyone would like to be unmuted to ask their question. Again, the raise your hand feature can be found under the participants list.
And while we're waiting, I want to ask everyone to please tell your neighbor, tell your friends, tell your businesses in your area, the grocery store you use, the hardware store, what have you. The more that we can allow people to know that disaster assistance is available, the more people we can help recover. And the last thing we want to do is go into the winter months and people decided they just didn't feel like they wanted a loan or didn't think they would qualify, and they're in a moldy, mildewy home or business, their furnace doesn't work, and they've passed the opportunity to get assistance. So we want everybody to please help spread the word that disaster loans can be a great resource for repairing and replacing, and for small businesses to get working capital.
Okay, Kathy, we have just one more question here that came in about insurance. So can it be insured by a private company, or does it have to be an NFIP?
It can be insured by any company that is willing to write a flood policy. It can be Lloyd's of London. It doesn't matter. But you will be told whether or not you need flood insurance. But yeah, we don't have any preferences. And if you cannot find an agent, then I would say go on FEMA's website where they have the National Flood Insurance Program, and they will provide you with the name of an agent that will sell you flood insurance.
Okay, I think that concludes all of our questions for today. We're just going to bring Dave back to close us out.
Yes, again, I just want to thank our friends at the SBA for taking the time and for everybody for joining us and sticking with us. I know we had a little bit of a technical glitch here or there, but we're going to post the video online. And I just want to echo something Kathy just said and encourage all of you and anyone you know who's been impacted by this to look at these resources, to make sure they put those applications in. Don't disqualify yourselves. Make sure you put the application in. It's a nuanced process. It's very specific to everybody's case. If you need that direct assistance, go to the Disaster Recovery Center at the Montgomery County Community College in Bluebell. It's open from 10 to 7, Monday through Friday, and 10 to 5 on Saturdays. And to stay apprised of everything Hurricane Ida related to here in Montgomery County, visit the county's website, www.moncopa.org/Ida. That has all the latest information on resources, on announcements, whatever it might be. We really want to help everybody recover from this and become more resilient in the future as well. So again, thank you very much for your time this afternoon, and take care and be safe.